up?
Yep, you're moving.
All right. Okay, so Ken, then you let me know when you're ready. And guys, I doubt this is going to happen, but there are a couple bloggers I contacted and asked them if they would join in. They have pretty large followings. They may join in, they may not. You know, it's hard to say. So I don't know if they will or they won't. But if that happens, then we'll let them in and then let them ask around the questions.
Where's my page go? Got everybody's picture on it. I hear you better go see it.
And ask them if they would join in. They have pretty large followings. They may join in. They may not. Okay. They will or they won't. All right. I'm getting feedback from someone else's speaker. Does somebody have a? I don't know why.
Well, what it was is I had pulled up the YouTube channel and it started streaming. I guess
yeah,
you started streaming.
Shut that off, though.
I did, yeah.
All right, thanks.
Hey, Philip.
Yes, sir.
I need you to call me.
Okay, when we get through, I'll call you.
Yeah.
Wait, so you lost me for a second. We're waiting for William, or?
No, we're waiting now for Ken to let us know when Ken's ready.
Oh, gotcha.
But I'm just in case, I'm just letting everybody know we might have a couple of bloggers I invited Skype in, and William might Skype in too. So if that happens, we'll just take a 5-minute break and we'll get them connected.
Okay, we're good to go. The only problem I'm having, Raphael, I don't see her.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah. Say when, I'll hit the start button.
Okay. So Ken, are you gonna be able to stream this through your?
Yep.
Okay.
I should stream and record at the same time.
Are we gonna do like 90 seconds, like before, just to make sure everything is,
right. Thanks. That's the thing. I had a. All right, one sec. Yeah, that's what I had. I had a timer I was going to bring up. You have a timer?
Yeah, my phone right here.
Okay. All right. Okay, Ken. So just hit it. You give us a countdown, and then Ken, are you going to be able to ask debate questions because we don't have William here?
I can, but I'm not on the screen, so it'll just be voice.
Can you add yourself to the screen or not?
I don't think so.
All right, it doesn't matter.
Set up, it's got me down at the bottom of a little bit.
All right, voice is fine. Let's not mess with the technicalities, because if we adjust the camera or something, it's going to throw us off Skype.
Okay, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, so you give me the countdown, and then I'll explain the way I set it up.
2, 1, start.
Okay, we're going to do the second online debate for the U.S. Senate seat out of Louisiana. And the way we set up this debate is I'm going to ask each of the candidates to introduce themselves, take approximately, I think 90 seconds is what we're going to use, to introduce themselves and to answer a quick icebreaker question about Louisiana. Now, the icebreaker questions don't have any right answer or wrong answer, and they probably aren't going to require a response from the other candidates. If you want to respond to the icebreaker question, then wait until we ask a debate question and incorporate that in there. It could be that some icebreaker question touches on an issue that's very important to your campaign. If it is, then by all means, when we get to the debate question, incorporate that in, and we'll allow the others to respond to it as well. So the intent of the icebreaker questions is just to give viewers who are not from Louisiana a little fact about Louisiana that they can use to familiarize themselves a little bit with the state of Louisiana. Okay, so the way my screen appears, we have Dr. Leroy Gillum on top, and we have the other three candidates on the bottom. So we went clockwise last time, so I'll go counterclockwise this time. I'll start with Dr. Leroy Gillum, and then I'll work around the clock counterclockwise. So Dr. Leroy Gillum, would you please take approximately 90 seconds to introduce yourself. And could you tell us and tell the viewers who aren't from Louisiana what one of the oldest churches in Louisiana is that we could go see when we visit Louisiana?
Mockridge Baptist Church in Cheneyville, Louisiana. It's a very old church. It's a historical post-Civil War church.
And would you introduce yourself just a little bit? Tell us a little bit about your campaign.
I am Leroy Gillum. I am a non-denominational minister. I stepped into this campaign because I want to make a difference. So many people have been lied to. So I want to make sure that the truth come out.
Okay.
I don't want no more lies to the people. So that's why I got to this campaign.
Thank you. Beryl Billett is the next person on my screen working counterclockwise. So Beryl Billett, if you could take approximately the same amount of time to introduce yourself, and could you also incorporate into your answer, tell us what is one of your favorite highway stops or interstate stops in Louisiana, and what is it that's at that stop that makes it your favorite?
Well, my name is Beryl Billett. I'm a lifetime Louisiana resident. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I'm a Native American. Most of all, I'm a husband and a father. I'm a concerned citizen in this to fight for the citizens of Louisiana. I stand for God, family, and freedom. I want to strengthen our military, heighten our national security, provide for those to make sure they got a solid future in our nation. Now, on Louisiana, the interstate stops for me, I like stopping over in Grosse Tête because it shows the epitome of what, well, not necessarily the epitome, but it gives an example of what Louisiana is all about on the south end of the state. The cypress trees, the open air, the swamps, and it's a totally unique experience in through the south end of the port of Louisiana.
Okay, thank you very much. Thomas Clemens, will you take approximately the same amount of time to introduce yourself, and can you tell us about a site in Louisiana that people should go visit when we go to Louisiana?
Well, I'm Thomas B. Clemens, my state senate candidate here in Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm basically just running, I'm applying for a job. I need a job. I'm still unemployed. And so I felt like being a senator would be a really good job. And after the oil and gas industry has been plummeted, and this has kind of been my direction and where I'm going in my life right now. And this is my second election, and so I'm hoping to do really good in this election.
All right, thank you very much.
Libertarian first time, thanks.
Okay, Charles Marcella, would you please take approximately the same amount of time to introduce yourself, and would you tell us about a location in Louisiana that visitors should go see if we want to learn something about Louisiana and how it fits into the nation as a whole?
Sure. I'll actually start with that. The Poverty Point is outside of Monroe, Louisiana, about 40 miles, and that ties into who I am. I have a TV show on the side called Awesome Wildlife Effort, and we just made a 7-minute video about Poverty Point. It's the oldest civilization in North America. There's some Indians that live there, and they set up a settlement. They were trading within 500 miles, and it's a World Heritage Site. There's only 23 in the whole United States, so it's a great place. My family's from Monroe. I grew up in New Orleans. I went out to California, became mayor of a town in Silicon Valley, and I've been back for a couple of years. I'm a financial advisor.
Okay, great. So we gave the first question to Raphael last time, so this time I'm going to ask Ken Daly if he wants the first question. Ken, do you want to open up with a general question about the political environment this year and the run for any federal office?
You want a general question or a specific question?
Well, I'll leave that up to you.
Well, my concern is not on the screen. Somebody just asked a question in the chat group. They say, "Where's Dr. Duke?" But that's not the question. The question is this: considering the influx of Islamic insurgents under the pretext of being refugees seeking asylum, What is your view on that? Are you for the Muslims invading our country, or you want to put a stop to that crap?
We'll
Not that my
start.
opinion is biased, but that's my question.
Okay, we'll start with Dr. Gillum for this question, and then we'll go clockwise with counterclockwise with who we start for the next question.
We all are immigrants. And the most important thing, if an individual comes into this country right, we do not have the right to stop them from coming. If they're not terrorists, if they're not anyone that is trying to harm this country, why should we keep them out? I have quite a few friends who are Islamic. They own businesses, they have jobs, they have families. So I say, long as they're not trying to come into this country to bomb us, to hurt us, then let them come. All Islamics are not terrorists. That's just like all of us are not bank robbers.
Okay, Beryl Billet, you're the next, the counterclockwise on my screen.
Well, Dr. Gillum, I have to disagree with that. I am not an immigrant. I'm a Native American. My family comes from right here. And I have to say that immigration is a very interesting point because, and like you said before, in 1492, immigration started with Christopher Columbus. They destroyed my whole ancestry, just about. A whole nation of indigenous people were pretty much wiped out from the face of the earth. So I think we need to be cautious in what we do, and you're right. We do have a process for people that want to come and share the American dream. They need to follow that process. But what's happening is they're coming in under the pretense of being a productive citizen for the in the U.S. country, and then what they're going to do is they radicalize, they recruit, and they increase their army within the borders of Louisiana and within the United States. So we have a problem that we have to figure out a way to make sure that we vet these people properly, that we understand what their intentions are, and that we monitor them until such point to where we're comfortable that they're wanting to become like us and not destroy us.
Thomas, you're next on the screen.
It's kind of ironic because I have it like an open border policy, and then, but with the refugees like it is in a war that's going on over there, and so there's no way to vet them, and so a lot of Americans are really upset about that, and so. If we can't figure out where they're coming from, we shouldn't be letting them in, and just because they look harmless, we'll have not. And so, I mean, the whole argument, if there wasn't having a war over there in the first place, we wouldn't be having this problem. So.
All right, Charles, Marcella.
Sure. My approach is unfunded mandates, and one of the things of my initiatives is that we get rid of the federal government sending to a city a bill, an invoice, so to speak. So the federal government sends a bunch of immigrants to Louisiana or New Jersey or wherever without the funds to educate them and add a new language to teach in the schools, without the funds for SWAT, for police to take care of it. There's no way for that city to cut out of its existing budget the funds to deal with this immigration issue. The other thing is that they've realized is that 80% of the immigrants coming in are registering to vote Democrat. So there's an issue there. Are they doing this to shift the party dynamics in Texas and in certain other Democrats? So demographics, excuse me. So we need to vet these guys because we've clearly seen what happened into Europe and crossing the Syrian border going into Turkey. But we've got to shut this down because we don't have the finances. And today I'm hearing that again. It's just there's no finances in the cities to do everything we need to do now, especially to add more bills to city government.
All right. Next debate question goes to Raphael. And
I think refugees get $1,700 a month now, when they come in.
Okay. Next debate question goes to Raphael, and the next person on my screen counterclockwise to start is Beryl Billet. So Beryl Billet starts this time.
Okay. My question would be regarding women and equal pay. Do you feel as though in the state of Louisiana, women still don't get equal pay for equal work? And if so, what will you do as senator to try and change that?
Well, that's a big issue that a lot of people are talking about. And when you talk about equal work for equal pay, as a business owner, I know that, my highest paid employee is actually a woman. So I don't think it's an issue so much based on industry, but under industry classifications. The problem that we have, and people are turning this into a big issue, is a lot of the times it's not equal work. I mean, I have friends that own trucking companies, and they have women drivers, which is fine, but they cannot unload or reload the truck on their own because they don't have the physical body strength to do it. But they want to demand the same wages that their male counterparts do that don't have to have a partner. So that vehicle, say for instance, that truck, has a certain amount of work that has to be done a certain amount of time. If you can put one person in it, you can pay that person more. If you got two people in it, you got to pay those people less. So I think we need to look at, we live in a free enterprise democratic society that's based on capitalism and competition. And you don't always get what you deserve. You always get what you negotiate. So, I'm a firm believer in I'm a capitalist. And I think that, over time, that free enterprise and capitalism balances itself out. So, there's some issues that I don't agree with that can be worked out, but on the whole, that's how I feel about that. And we should fight so no one is discriminated against based on race, sex, religion, or anything. But, in reality is, if you go into an interview and you accept what they offer first time around, even men side to side don't get paid the same.
All right, Thomas.
I wish in a perfect world we could have, equal pay for women and men, but how do we implement it is one thing, and I think keeping it maybe more public awareness to make a change for that to really happen. And I think the biggest argument is that you see men and women, they got the same qualifications, and then he's making $50,000 more than she is. So. I see where women has their point, and so I kind of side with them on that, but how to implement it and how to enforce that would be that, how do you do that on a private company? So, and that's what they're trying to change in the government, organizations to where, they keep that more equal, and so you're seeing a lot of slack in there as well. But that's just how I see it. I think it's equal pay would be good, but, I think it's just a subject to touch on and just keep us away from the main issue.
Okay, Charles?
So in Louisiana, it is worse than the national average. In California, it was much better than the national average. So in high-tech companies, women are doing a lot better than they are in the companies here. But I actually don't know the job classifications where these problems are. Because obviously it can't be with the government. And then if you go into tech, it's about what you can negotiate, and people move around. And the companies that I work in are commissioned. There's a woman in our company that makes more than me because she produces more. And it's a lending office, and she's phenomenal. So it's basically we all have the same ratio. A lot of times, commissioned sales reps are given the right rep. She's got a great following, so she does better. I'm building my book on that end. The thing, though, is that the law we talked about last year that they said Republicans opposed was incredibly complicated, that you had to disclose everything about every employee to justify any pay difference. And that would have meant a lot of personal stuff would have been in public information under any request. So that wasn't the solution. We do have along the books for equal pay from the 60s. And the idea is to get that in compliance and find out what's not happening in that law and what jobs are not paying the same.
Dr. Gillum.
May I clarify or make a comment concerning the Islamic also again?
Yes, and also, could you shift in your camera a little bit? You're just a little bit to your left. Perfect. Yeah, that's better.
The one thing that I'm concerned about is that if we just bear down and stop these people from trying to come in legal, they're going to come in illegal. They'll find a way to come in, whether we let them in or not. And then we won't be able to monitor what they're doing. I say let them come if they want to come. Let them come in right, long as they're not terrorists. They cannot get a visa to come here without an investigation being done on them. And most of them.
Do you want to respond to the other question too?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm 100% for women being paid equal as men are being paid. Number one, they work just as hard. Number two, they have a family to support just like we have. And if she's doing the same work that we're doing and we're being paid more than her, that is totally wrong. She must be paid equal for her work. And 90% of the women that's working side by side with a man, she has to be much better than he is, or she will not be hired. Then she has to put up with the sexual harassment. Then she has to be put up with the men talking down to her. Yes, they should be paid equal as a man.
Okay, great. All right. Now my debate question is, let's see, Dr. Gillum, then it was Bill. So Thomas Clements is first this time around. Should we allow a place for Sharia law within U.S. law, and should we consider not allowing first-generation immigrants to have a right to vote? Should that be something that we hold off, that you don't get until you're a second-generation immigrant? That would be the children.
No Sharia law whatsoever anywhere. Yeah, I'm a firm believer on that. I've seen judges, they're being sworn in on the Quran book and all that. That's all fine and all that, but we don't need Sharia law in this country.
Okay, what about withholding the right to vote until you get to the second generation?
Say that again.
What about
the first generation?
Withholding the right to vote from first-generation immigrants, so only second-generation immigrants and beyond would have a right to vote in the United States?
What are you talking about? Illegal or legal?
Illegal. Both. Legal and illegal. If you immigrate to the United States and you get citizenship, if you're a first-generation immigrant, you would not have a right to vote, but your children would.
No, I don't believe that's right.
Okay.
I wouldn't agree with that. I mean, honestly.
All right. Charles Marcello, you're next on my screen.
Sharia law, no. I mean, I don't even know where we'd have the budget. If you think about the cost of how much money in Congress it would take to put that in, just some parts of it, I don't know what's needed. So we have our laws, and our laws aren't supposed to be based on Christian or any certain religion. There's that separation of church and state. So I don't see what Sharia law we'd be wanting to put in here. And I think first generation needs to vote. In San Francisco, I had a lot of friends who are first generation Americans, and they worked their butts off to understand the Constitution and pass that citizenship test. So I don't see why they wouldn't be allowed to vote. They work hard, they contribute taxes, they vote.
Okay, great. Dr. Gillum, same question. Should we bring Sharia law, and should first generation be allowed to vote?
I don't agree with the Sharia law. That's number one. Number two, I'm a strong believer if a man become a citizen of this great country, he should have his right to vote just like anyone else. But I must say, we as African Americans, we were born here in this country, and we still don't have the rights to vote like we're supposed to. Congress has to vote every 25 years in order for us to vote.
Okay.
But yes, he should be able to.
Okay, now I'm going to ask another series of icebreaker questions. Oh, I'm sorry about that. That is my fault.
Barry wants to answer. Sure. We'll let you answer this time. Go ahead.
I'm short, but I'm not invisible, Sean.
That is my fault. I'm sorry.
When it comes to Sharia law, absolutely not. When you start breaking up the federal law code and you start instilling micro areas of different law that differ substantially from the federal law, it creates a problem. When you look at, through history, all these places that started fashioning out their law and their code, it was a failure of their society. So in order to maintain a united states, we must have a united law. Now, granted, each state has states' rights and they can have some variation, but they must fall under the federal guidelines of what those things are. Now, as far as the next question, I think once you obtain citizenship and prove your loyalty to the United States, I think, we're given that right to vote, and I think those first generation immigrants should And to be quite honest with you, I think they know more about our Constitution than most American citizens do because they're studying it to pass it.
I think you're right about that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is ask all the candidates another sentence fragment question, which is another icebreaker question, and then we'll move into the next set of debate questions, and Raphael will ask the first debate question. Okay, so this time we'll start with Beryl Billet because we started the icebreakers with Dr. Gillum the first time around. Okay, so Beryl Billet, can you tell us very quickly in like 30 seconds, what is Mardi Gras? The rest of us out of Louisiana don't know. What is Mardi Gras?
It's a party in the street. It comes back from the history of the kings and queens floating down, throwing out riches to the subjects, and it's become a very big party. Most people don't know the origin. I couldn't tell you the whole story, but it's a part of getting together, and it brings a lot of New Orleans and Louisianans together in celebration of the carnival season. And I know Charles has a lot more history, and he could probably give us a lot more insight on that.
All right, Thomas Clements, could you please tell us what are Mardi Gras beads? What are they for?
What are Mardi Gras beads?
Yeah, what are they for?
Well, you got to catch the biggest Mardi Gras bead possible because that's the good luck, see, and it's going to bring you all the prosperity and health and wealth and all that fun stuff, see. So that's the whole fun of it. Over here in Lafayette, Louisiana, Mardi Gras, I think we had like a 15-mile parade. So
okay,
I think it's one of the longest parades in Louisiana. And well, it is a great family event. And,
all right, thank you. Charles, where in Louisiana can we find a surviving icon to French loyalism dating back to before the Louisiana Purchase?
So that's a good question. Give me a second here to think. There's the Joan of Arc statue in the French Quarter, but it's not pre-Louisiana Purchase. Oh, the Cabildo and the St. Louis Cathedral. So Jackson Square in the French Quarter has several buildings that are all pre-purchase, and the there's a beautiful golden plated statue that France sent over here of Joan of Arc, and I would that's right there in Decatur Street, which is a great story. If we go around again and have another question.
Okay, great. Dr. Gillum, would you please tell us what was the view of Louisianans at the time the Louisiana Purchase was being discussed the first time, and how do Louisianans feel about it today? Are there any Louisianans that wish Louisiana was separate?
Well, the governor of Louisiana and the governor of Texas gotten together, and they had made a plan that they was trying to put together to succeed or to leave the United States and become their own country. Yes, there are many people who want Louisiana to be separate from the United States, no longer part of the Union.
And that's today. That's not historical. That's right now, correct?
That's today.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to go back to debate questions, and we're going to give this a round of debate questions to Raphael. We left off with Thomas Clements went first last on a debate question, so Charles Masella goes first this time.
Okay. My next question is in regards to transgender rights. Do you believe transgenders should be respected as would a man who was born a man and a woman who was born a woman, so far as not just overall rights, but the ability to go into the restroom of the gender that they identify with?
Okay, I'm going to take a lifeline, and I'm going to go back to what Mardi Gras is. So Mardi Gras is beginning to fast for 40 days, and we start 10 days before. It's a Catholic tradition that before Jesus died, the Catholics would fast for 40 days. Mardi Gras literally means Fat Tuesday, and then you would eat so much. So the festivities are all about doing stuff you wouldn't do during Lent, which is fasting for Catholics. So that's that answer. back there. Now, back to your other question. Transgender rights. I've had some lengthy discussions with some friends on that issue, and I just think it's too complicated. We've seen too many reactions where a parent takes a 5-year-old girl into a restroom and they get it's confusing. So I've had also some friends who have transgender friends. I don't think I personally have any transgender friends, but they've said that it's you want everybody to have their rights. However, my thoughts are, particularly for small girls, I think there's too much of a shock value, and the parents aren't going to deal with that. I don't see the inconvenience to a gender person unless you have the opportunity now to convert the handicap restroom into transgender, which I wouldn't be opposed to that as a compromise. But to have a 40-year-old man go into a restroom with an 11-year-old girl, I think that's going to cause issues.
Dr. Gillum.
Well, I'm a firm believer that every citizen in this country have their civil rights, but it's one right that I refuse to give up. I will not allow my 15-year-old daughter to go in the restroom with a man just because he say that he have a man body, but on the inside he's a woman. No, I will not accept that under any circumstances. Too many little children have gotten raped in these different shopping mall restrooms, bus station restrooms. I wouldn't want none of my children to be a victim of that. So no, I wouldn't go along with it. I would go ballistic. My understanding would be zero.
Dr. Bill, excuse me, Mr. Billiot.
Well, first let me say this, is that I do not condone 1% of the population. Right now, we have many big problems in our nation. And this is a social issue that distracts us from the big problems in our society when less than 1% of the population is dictating policy. But on that note, I do not agree with the transgender situation. People can say they identify with whatever they choose to, and if we allow them to have these laws in their favor, sometimes it puts us in an awkward position. Now, I believe everybody has their rights, but to what degree is that right going to infringe on somebody else's rights? We need to remember that our rights stop where somebody else's rights begin. And it goes back to the same issue. I have transgender people in my family. You have the right to do whatever you want. But when it comes to a public domain, we must remain as protectful as we can to those members of public outside of that. The person that is putting themselves in a position of separation for some reason or another, they should be the ones made uncomfortable, not the rest of society. And that's my opinion. And I would advocate that, we continue to protect the majority from predators. And that's my stance on it.
Thomas Clements.
Absolutely, transgender, they should have the right. As far as the restroom issue and all that, that's been a serious issue going on for for a long time, actually. And it just, it just seems like it's some kind of mental problem or some kind of hormone problem or, some kind of awful thing going on in our country with this transgender situation, where it's just common sense, where, everything's been set the way it is. Why are we trying to change something for, just a few people that are having medical problems? I see it as a medical problem, medical hormone imbalance or something. But, and I feel for them, and that's why, I think, they should have their rights, but also respect of all the rest of our rights as well.
Okay.
So that's where I stand.
Okay, the next debate question will go to Ken Daly. Ken Daly, do you want another debate question? And
Sure.
Charles Marcella will go first this time. No, it'll be Dr. Gillum. Charles, you went first on this last question, so Dr. Gillum goes first this time.
Okay, you ready? Somebody once asked the question, what about rich people paying their fair share of taxes? Get your reaction on that. First of all, how do you define a rich person? And secondly, how do you define fair share? Your response to that?
Anyone that have $1 million and above, that is a rich individual. Anyone else, they're comfortable. But every citizen should pay their fair share in taxes. Or if we're going to pay a certain amount, the rich should pay a certain amount. It's no way out, no free ride. That's what I believe in. There's many people who go out and buy a lot of houses, and they don't pay the property taxes that the individual who only own one house. It is not right for an individual who are rich to pay less taxes than the ones that are poor. This country is being built on the back of the poor man, not the rich man. He's not sacrificing. He's not trying to make a difference for the people. He's just trying to get more money. So the less taxes he pays, the less money he will give out and the more money he will have.
Well, what is fair share? Is it 90%, 70%, 30%? Everybody say pay the same percent. What is fair share?
Fair share is what the state designed for every individual to pay, or the federal government. And for that reason, everybody should pay the same.
Mr. Brilliant.
Well, my definition of rich would be it changes. It's a formula based on income versus cost of living to determine your ability to be excessive to some degree. So that's an arbitrary number, what you say rich. Some people consider themselves rich and they got $100 in their pocket. Some people consider themselves, they don't consider themselves rich unless they got $10 billion in their pocket. So that's an arbitrary number. But when it comes back to paying your fair share, I'm a proponent of a flat tax based on consumption, similar to a nationwide sales tax. That eliminates a lot of problems with our tax code. The reason a lot of rich don't pay taxes is because it's not that they're doing anything illegal, but the system allows these things to happen. They're working within the realm of the law that which we provide. So, you know, it's good business to be able to say, hey, if I can avoid paying $40,000 this month in taxes, I'm going to not necessarily avoid it. I'm going to avoid it, not evade it. There's a difference in those two terms. You know, so when you talk about fair share, if you do a flat tax based on consumption, every individual that purchases an item pays taxes, whether you're a tourist, a visitor, an immigrant, a worker, or rich. Everything is flat across the board, and you only pay taxes when you buy something. But it increases revenue, it reduces the tax burden on the American people, and it makes it fair across because you only do it when you spend, and you choose when you spend and how much you spend.
Thomas Clements.
Yeah, the fair tax thing. What Bill saying there, I mean, I kind of agree with some of that, but I mean, it would have to eliminate the income tax, I would think. Yes. Literally. I mean, you can't have both. There's no way.
That's right. It's a replacement.
You know, I would see something like that going forward. And as far as fairness goes, you know, I'm a flat tax rate. I said it many years ago in the Senate hearing, and you know, senators were asking me questions, and one this kind, you know, well, what do you think about the tax code? I thought, man, you know, flat tax rate would be the fairest going across. It don't matter how much money you've gotten, because even the rich, you know, they're still putting money back into the economy. So, but I'm just trying to get more money back into people's hands. You know, that's part of my campaign. That's why I want a flat tax rate.
Charles Marcella.
You know, that's obviously a very objective question. On the flat tax, I think that there's a big problem with that, and that a lot of people deduct their business meals. And New Orleans economy is based on tourism dollars and business tourism dollars. So if you had a flat tax and suddenly you couldn't deduct that dinner in Antoine's where you brought all your salespeople down here for a conference, we might really see a huge thing in New Orleans, a problem, because nobody would be traveling as much without the business tax, the business deduction, because it went to a flat tax. As far as being rich, you know, $1 million will only get you about a 1,500 square foot home in San Jose. So you're talking about a national standard. In Louisiana, it's a big difference. So I think it's such a relative term. My first deal, I sold shelving, and on weekends I installed it, and then I had to pay taxes on Saturday so that I could keep what I made on Sunday. And I think at times that upset me if I'm thinking I'm working overtime and the other guy is at the beach. Why don't I get to keep Saturday and Sunday's income? Why do I have to give half of it to the government to distribute? So I believe that we would keep taxes as low as possible. Rich is a word that we're never going to agree on. And I think of Mark Zuckerberg can create jobs and these great tools for us to use, and he makes billions of dollars. That's the incentive, because if we told the government to put out the bid creating a bunch of jobs, we'd spend the money.
Thank you, Charles.
Sorry.
All right, the next debate question is my debate question, and it will start with Mr. Billiot because Dr. Gillum went first on the last question. Now, Dr. John could not make it here tonight, but in the words of Dr. John from Louisiana, if the rich were not rich, would the poor have more?
You kind of broke up a little bit. I didn't catch everything. If the rich were not rich, would the poor have more?
Yes, that's the question.
I don't think so. I think it goes hand in hand. A lot of times, when you look at our complex society, our complex economics, it takes all kinds to make it work. The rich people, what some people consider rich, create a lot of jobs. If they were not creating the businesses and the opportunities for some of the poor, then maybe they would have nothing. And so a lot of the tax, I don't say refunds because it's not a refund. You're not getting something you paid back. You're getting something that somebody else paid. So if the rich were not paying the taxes that they pay, everybody says the rich don't pay their fair share. But when you look at the amount of money that the rich do pay in taxes, maybe in reference to percentage, it may not seem to be high. When you look at the dollar amount that they actually put into the taxes, that's what's redistributed back to the poor and their earned income credit. So, I have to say that if the rich disappear, the poor don't get that redistribution of wealth, then they're going to have less.
Thomas Clements, if the rich weren't rich, would the poor have more?
The rich wasn't rich, but the poor had more. I feel like I'm answering some kind of Dr. Zeus question or something.
It's actually a Dr. John question, but please answer it.
All right. So the rich were poor, and would the poor get more? So for me, it kind of relates to the flat tax rate, because we're talking about jobs, and that's how we're going to help the poverty in the middle class. So people get out of poverty and get in the middle class, and middle class try to to succeed to the upper middle class. And so I think that's where maybe so, yeah. Maybe that terminology might be a thing if you applied it in an economic kind of terminology. Yeah.
Charles Marcella.
The answer would be no. The poor would be poorer. Louisiana is a negative state, meaning that we pay less money per capita that goes into the system than we get back more per capita than we're paying in. So if we didn't have rich states funding the differential for Louisiana, everybody in Louisiana would be poor. We'd receive less.
Dr. Gillum.
I feel as though this society wouldn't function very well without a rich man or a rich woman who have a business that is employing the American people. By employing them, they're paying them fair wages for fair work. So that helped them to become sovereign in this nation, financially sovereign. It also gives them a situation where they can, how can I say it, support their family, give them the best way of life. Without someone being rich to hire you, then you will have a serious problem financially.
Okay, now we're going to ask more icebreaker questions, and the last icebreaker started with Charles Billiot, so this icebreaker will start with Thomas Clements. These are intended to be very short, sentence fragment, short response questions. Okay, Thomas Clements, should we criminalize drug addiction?
Should you criminalize drug addiction?
Yes, not the act of using drugs, the diagnosis of being addicted to them. Should we criminalize drug addiction?
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
All right, thank you. Great. Charles Marcella, should the healthcare system allow a path of euthanasia for the addicted?
I'm going to say no, but I think that there's some reasons I'd probably say yes if I knew we had more time to discuss.
Okay. All right. Dr. Gillum, should an automobile that's stopped on the highway be searched based off of the threshold of probable cause or reasonable suspicion?
I feel as though if a man is pulled, let's say someone is pulled over for a ticket, an officer do not have the right to search that car unless he 100% know that something is in that car that is illegal. And to me, once an officer cross that line and search a car, he violating the civil rights of the people.
So that's probable cause, not reasonable suspicion, correct?
He would have to I feel like he should 100% know something is in there just to search.
Okay. Mr. Billiot, does the dash cam on a Louisiana police car start to record when the police officer puts the key in the ignition, when he turns the ignition, or when he turns on the red and blue lights?
I'm not sure. I'd have to research that information. I'm not sure it's when they put the key goes in, because not all vehicles are equipped with dash cams. So I think it's going to be a situation based on their jurisdiction as to what they require. But some units don't even have dash cams.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ken Daly had the first debate question last round. So this round, we're going to give Raphael the first debate question. And the first person, I believe, we're back to Thomas Clements because Beryl went first on the last debate question. Is that correct? Okay, so Thomas Clements gets the question this time.
Okay. Sean kind of touched on it a little bit in his icebreaker question, but I'll ask anyways. I'm hearing some feedback. Do you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to continue.
Yeah.
Should marijuana be legalized? Yes or no, and why? In this country.
Okay, ready?
Yes, go ahead, Thomas.
Yeah, should marijuana be legalized? Yeah, I believe it should be legalized. California has a ballot that's fixing to pass by like over 60% easily. I think once California passes it, it's going to sweep across the country. I think state legislators are going to be making it legal. I mean, it's going to escalate even farther. I think within the next 5 years, I would think the whole country would be legal at this point. And then it has medical benefits too. I honestly believe that in natural medicine, and I think there's a lot of research that has been slacking from it. And then maybe there's some cures in there. I don't understand it. It cures some cancer too. So. We need to have that kind of technology. We have such great technology now, and to have this incorporated in the medical society today, we're all losing it. It's not in there today.
Charles, Marcella.
Interestingly, I had a 45-minute conversation on this Friday night with a student or teacher in New Orleans who favored that it needed to be legalized. And right after that, somebody else walked in and said people should be put away for life that had marijuana. So it's a controversial topic. We need a solution. We have too many people going to jail for it, and that's messing up their careers. So the legalization would, or maybe the lowering of it to a smaller penalty, almost like a speeding violation for now. We may be on a path to legalization but I still think that there's problems with abuse that concern me, and there's a lot of eye-opening. I think moderation is needed as a first step, and I need to learn more from there.
Dr. Gillum.
That's a catch-22 situation for me. I feel as I feel that marijuana do serve a purpose. Okay, but I also feel that those who are not using it for medication, but just to get high, that's a problem. They have a problem. It has created a problem. But the most important thing is Carolina, not Carolina, Colorado, have made a strong argument for it because it boosted up the economy once they legalized it. But I feel as though right now, if you just have 2 marijuana sticks, it's just a traffic ticket. It's nothing to go to jail for, just a traffic ticket. So I don't see the fuss in it.
Beryl Billet.
At this current moment, with the technology that we have, I say no. For recreational use, medicinal purposes, I would say yes. But for as a recreational use, I say no, and this is why. Because we do not have the technology to be able to determine how much is in someone's system. Now, granted, marijuana is probably safer for you than alcohol, and it wouldn't do any more harm. The problem is we are an oil and gas state, and in the oil and gas industry, I don't want to have somebody working in that refinery that's under the influence of marijuana on the job. So we don't have the technology to be able to determine how intoxicated or how much under the influence they are. All we can do is tell yes they are or no they're not. So until we can determine the amount of effect that that marijuana is having on someone, it gives us a limiting factor as to know if they're unsafe to operate a vehicle, if it's unsafe for them to work with others and put them in harm's way. So, and then it becomes to a problem of just because you legalize it doesn't make the employers have to be able to accept you into their business if you have it in your system. So I think there's some questions that we need to answer, but there are some benefits to it. And personally, I think from a personal standpoint, I think it does more good for individuals than alcohol does. But again, I think our technology limits the ability to be able to limit the amount that you have to be able to do things that may be dangerous.
Okay, great. We're going to give the second debate question in this round to Ken Daly.
Okay, you asked about marijuana. The principle in my mind is if you make something illegal, it does not make it go away. Sometimes it actually proliferates, makes it even worse. So people say, let's make marijuana illegal and it'll go away. No, it doesn't. It makes it sometimes worse. All right, same thing could apply to prostitution, and that's my question. At what point should prostitution be made legal? Now, we know that, for example, during the Civil War, the soldiers were allowed to engage in prostitution, and it was regulated by the state. So what are your reactions on that?
The first person here is Charles this time.
Well, interesting thing. I'm going to hold up a quick book here. This is called Murder on the Bayou. It's a big thing going on right now in Louisiana. I stopped off in Jennings last Sunday to see what that place looked like. You have 8 women that got addicted to drugs that turned to prostitution to take care of fund their drug habit, and they all ended up dead. The place that Boudreaux became a brothel there, and ties into everything we're talking about. Police were taking illegal searches and selling the drugs. So when you turn something like that legal, you're opening yourself up to really cartels trying to get into this industry. And we just had another body on Monday found. So I think prostitution is definitely not something you can control, and you're lending itself. We have the second highest murder rate of women in the state, in the nation, and that's in Louisiana. So I'd be opposed to that.
Dr. Gillum.
I feel that I'm gonna back up to the marijuana and bring it out to what he asked. I look at it as though marijuana and alcohol is equally dangerous. I do drug counseling, and when you take in enough marijuana, You go out and come into consciousness. Go out, come into consciousness. If you stand in, your body will rock with it. Just as alcohol do you. When you get enough alcohol in you, you're not all the way conscious no more. But prostitution, serious matter. And most so, you tie the two in with marijuana. You have young girls who think that prostitution is a way of life. That's a lot of money. All it's doing, it's tearing down the body of these women. These women are put in a position where they will be murdered. So I feel like prostitution is something that we all have to have a handle on. We all have to make sure that we don't create it more by participating with it. Yes, every country our soldiers have went into,
Thank you.
prostitution went up higher. Even rape went up higher.
Okay.
For instance, in Afghanistan, that was a young lady raped.
Dr.
by
Billiot,
military.
excuse me, Dr. Gillum, we're going to move to Mr. Billiot, and then we'll, at the end, we'll allow everyone to go back to the issues that are important to them to say something in closing. So, Mr. Billiot, same question.
You know, I don't think that prostitution should be legalized, and because it opens up a whole bunch of different issues. You know, we can debate all day long that if just because you make it illegal doesn't make it go away, but it does give you the authority to act upon it. You know, we can eliminate the jails by making everything legal. And, you know, that's what some people want. They want total freedom, total chaos. That's called anarchy. All right, so we have to have rules in which to live by. So, you know, prostitution is going to exist. People are going to do these things. It's going to happen. But just because you decriminalize it, or if you make it legal to be able to touch taxes on it, how does that change our public view? How does that affect our children in playgrounds and parks? How does it affect us as a nation? And, you know, we need to start approaching these things from a systemic view and not looking at them as one point at a time, because it has more effect than just the act of what you're talking about. It has long lingering effects on society. And that's what we need to start looking at. We all have the rights and freedoms to do what we want to do in private, but when we come into public, that's what we as leaders and what we as a governing body needs to think about. We want to give the liberties and the freedoms to people to do what they want on their own time. But when you're doing it on a public street in a public venue, we need to be a little bit more discriminatory as to what we allow to happen. We need to be a little tighter on our restraints, because we need to protect the rights of those conservatives as well as those liberals. It's a balance, and we have to find that balance.
Thomas Clements.
Well, that's a real good question, and from a libertarian standpoint, and you know, their principles, they're all for legal prostitution. You know, the state of Nevada does have it legal over there. They have a lot of rules and regulations for the workers and stuff, and you know, they keep it clean, they keep it good, and I think that's something that you know, that should be looked at, and as far as, you know, legally and stuff like that, and keeping it clean and stuff like that, you know, why not? Because I mean, we've been having this in our country for how many decades with Nevada, so. You know, people get a little hysterical, like it's going to be next door to them or something. I mean, you know, that's why you have the rules and regulations, and you know, you keep the girls clean and stuff like that. And you know, look, at least they're not in the you know, the prostitutions it's going to go on no matter what. At least they're not in some dirty old barn or backseat of a car or back alley or something like that. You know, this is all clean out in the open. You know, same thing with legalizing marijuana. You know, you're going to have, you know, you're going to eliminate drug cartels. Gangs are going to lose business. You know, and they're going to want to learn how to be legal. And,
Okay.
and that's what we're trying to do as libertarians, and change and say, look, you know, we believe in the free market.
Okay.
We believe in our rights as long as we're not harming nobody else.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. The next debate question is my debate question, and Dr. Gillum goes first because Charles Marcello went first last time. Okay, Dr. Gillum, if you're elected to Senate, would you support a federal statute that mandates that all of the 50 states and U.S. territories must use probable cause as the standard for searching a vehicle? I ask that because many states have reasonable suspicion as the standard. Some have probable cause as the standard. Would you endorse a federal statute that would mandate what you said earlier? The cop absolutely must know that there is something illegal in that vehicle before he searches.
There should never be just probable cause. I've seen people go to prison because of probable cause, and they was innocent. Okay, many police officers use the word probable cause because they already want to hassle you anyway, so they'll say we had probable cause. And unfortunately, a lot of citizens have ended up with cocaine in the trunk of their car that they did not put in there, but a police officer put there. No, I don't think a police officer should open your trunk just on probable cause.
Okay, Mr. Billiot, you're next on my screen. Would you pass a statute, a federal statute, that made probable cause the standard for the entire country for searching vehicles? Again, I ask this because many states have a lower standard, lower than probable cause. They call it reasonable suspicion.
I would not. I would not support that, simply because you want the federal laws to be, you want the states to be able to also have their own state rights, right? So if we do this, that we've taken the power away from the police more than we already have. I know for a fact that a lot, just like Mr. Marcello was talking about earlier, with these drug rings making illegal stops, seizing the drugs, and all these things. But what's happening is we've got a major drug problem in America. And if we have to tie the cops' hands to where, okay, they see this vehicle and they're acting strangely and they have a reason to believe that there's a problem. What is the problem if you have drugs in your car and the cop finds it? You're in the wrong. Okay, but if he searches your vehicle and you don't have anything, then what is the problem with that? You know, Mr. Gillum made an argument about the cop put that cocaine in the trunk of that car. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but there's fewer times that occurs than when they stop a traffic stop and they find a car full of cocaine going to be distributed in another community. They've made numerous stops on Interstate 55 through Louisiana, stopping it coming up from the north or up to the north. And so they took tons of cocaine and heroin off the street simply because they were astute enough to see that they were acting suspiciously and that they did not fit a normal profile of just a standard traffic stop.
Thank you. Thomas Clements, same question. Would you raise the standard across the nation by law to probable cause?
And kind of in relation to what the last two had just kind of said, the war on people about drugs and what gives the cop right to search a car and what have not. And that's where I'd love to see all the drugs legal, I guess, if I had my choice. Is what I could do nationwide across the darn country. Okay, so that way they wouldn't need no probable cause or reasonable suspicion because, everything's legal. So that would be my solution. I'm not the libertarian. I'm the lazy candidate here, the simple solution, and that's just the way to go. Legalize all the drugs. And look, ain't nobody got to be getting searched. Everybody be driving too slow and getting, parking tickets and stuff
Great.
like that.
All right. Charles Marcella, same question. Would you raise the standard nationwide to probable cause?
I just think, I think that the state's issue, so I wouldn't raise it nationwide. I don't agree with it. We've had some abuse, and I think however, that we are a nation where we do have states, and we have certain areas where I think the federal government would get into a problem by trying to overexpand to. But to Dr. Gillum's point, again, I'll go back to this book. It's an amazing read, and it's opening up something there where the state troopers were searching cars coming across the state of Louisiana without probable cause and confiscating drugs or prescription pills that were legal, causing a big problem. So I think we still have an issue where we've got to look at our police department and what they're doing in a better light, but it's a state right.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to ask 4 more icebreaker questions. Again, short sentence fragments. The last time we started with Thomas Clements, so this time we'll start with Charles. Charles, should a property owner have, anywhere in the United States, not just Louisiana, should a property owner have the right to shoot and kill a trespasser on his property just because the trespasser is on his physical property, not inside of a building, not inside of a home, just on the property?
Sean, I think that these laws, and having written a lot of laws, you have 5 or 6 pages. So you want simple answers, and there isn't one to that.
Okay.
I would say that you still need a right to do that, because if you're a farmer and you see that you're being threatened, you don't want to wait for the person in your house. There's a spot where you can say, these farms are out in the middle of nowhere land in Louisiana, and somebody's coming across and they mean harm for you. Why wouldn't you have the ability to say stop now and get off my property, as opposed to wait till they're in your house?
Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Gillum, should anyone across the United States have the right to shoot and kill an intruder who is inside of their house?
I feel that every man has the right to protect his home. If an intruder come into his home, he must be sure that his wife and his children will not be harmed. You have to do what he has to do.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Sure, protect his home.
Thank you. Mr. Billiot, should shop owners, store owners, and for that matter, ordinary people across the United States have a right to shoot and kill someone who is thieving and stealing their property from their store?
Again, I'm gonna say like Mr. Marcella, you should have the right to do so, but I think there needs to be some judgment involved, and you have to have some type of standard in which, if he's just coming in stealing a loaf of bread with no, it's a difficult thing to say, but
Okay.
I say yes, you need to be able to give them that right, because
Okay.
if everyone knows the law, they're not going to come
Okay.
in and try to steal if you know.
Okay,
So, yes.
Thomas Clements. In Florida, over the past week or so with the hurricane, when Black Lives Matter gave a speech informing government that as soon as the hurricane ended, they were going to march on shop owners and loot the shops, did they threaten to commit a crime openly, and did the shop owners have a right to form the perimeter around their shops and to engage in a gunfight when Black Lives Matter showed up to loot their property?
It seemed like a couple questions in there.
Just pick one. Just pick one.
I tell you what, here's the thing. If they're coming onto your property, if your life is in danger, by all means, yes, you have the right to shoot and kill and defend yourself. But if they're just coming out there to loot and take your stuff, shooting them, I would say no.
Okay, great.
I mean, if your life is in danger, yes.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to give the next debate question to Ken Daly, and then after that, we'll go to Raphael. So, Ken, would you please ask the next debate question?
My question is really kind of simple. What is the single most important thing that would be on your agenda if you get elected to the United States Senate?
I forgot who we started with. I don't remember who answered the last.
I went first last time. Sean.
Okay, so it's Dr. Gillum.
I'm a firm. Well, the one thing I want to do when I'm elected as senator, I want to help our veterans because the veterans have a bad break. They have poor health care. It takes them years to get their pensions. They not talked to very well. So I want to change that for the veterans. I also want to work with those men and women who are on food stamps. Do what we call a partnership. Give them a training, then partnership with them by opening up a business. And they hire other people that's on food stamps. No family members, no friends, just other people who on food stamps, which will cut down on the economy. And the kicker to the whole thing that I would want to do is work with the with the mayors of Louisiana. Just because I'm U.S. Senator, that don't mean I can't work with the mayors and help bring in more companies into Louisiana. That is very important.
Okay, Mr. Billiot.
Well, the first thing that I want to do is my whole campaign slogan is called prioritizing our people. The way I see it, we must first prioritize our spending to make sure that we have the money to do the things that we want to do. We've got so much money tangled up in allocations and constitutional commitments that are creating a stranglehold on the American people to where we cannot have the funds to do the things that are necessary. So even though I want to increase our military strength, secure our borders, until we find the finances to straighten out the financial mess that we have, we can't do anything. So my first thing would be to untangle the mess, make sure we have the funds available, and then hit my priorities of the things that I would like to do. But the first thing is to make sure that money is available and that we untangle the mess.
Okay, Thomas Clements.
My first order of business, becoming senator would be, I would want to set up some kind of network base and be in contact with all the constituents and all the voters and everybody, and somehow keep them involved in the process. Because it seems like after elections, people just go back to their everyday, normal day life. They really don't even know what's going on anyhow. They just haven't heard that name and they just have to go ahead and vote for them. How can we somehow get them involved in directing some of these, coming up with new ideas and making new laws and get things changed? And how do we bring in more money to the state of Louisiana? But I think the most crucial part is having that communication with the voters after you get back in office.
Charles Marcella.
I got 10 things on my list, but I think tops would be clean water. We got a serious problem here with dirty water in the Gulf, dirty water in many times we got to boil our water. But our jobs and senior finances would be right behind there. But for the starters, we got to get the agrotoxins out the water.
Okay, great. The next debate question goes to Raphael, and the person who goes first this time is Mr. Billiot.
Should convicted felons be forced to disclose their criminal history on job applications? And if so, should that be used as a tool of discrimination against them in the job search?
Yes, and I think there needs to be some clarification. If we make it to where you don't have to disclose, in some professional environments, it could be critical depending on what their criminal history was. So if you were a convicted felon for bank robbery, why would we want to hire you in a bank? So by not disclosing that information, we're putting ourselves at risk. So if we make a mandate to where you do not have to disclose that, then we're putting a lot of people at risk. We need to start having things to dissuade people from doing wrong things and becoming a convicted felon. If you know up front that if I commit a felony, I can no longer have a free life, we need to have some dissuasion in our society to make sure people understand that there are consequences for my action. If we keep allowing these things to occur and starting making passes and putting away the reasons why we started holding these things back, then we're somewhat allowing these things to perpetuate. So we have to put a stop. We need to start holding people accountable to the things that they do and not making excuses for them and paving a way for them to move forward.
Thomas Clements.
Have felonies, or the question is, would you have to put your felony on your application?
I'll say it again. Should convicted felons have to disclose their criminal history, including their felonies, on job applications? And if so, should that be used as a tool of discrimination against them in their job search?
I would say the answer to that would be no. And I tell you why is because as a person that would be in prison and we're supposed to be rehabilitating them, and most of them come back into society. And so, they need to have a chance to get back into society. But most of them come back out and they do well. And they get their life back together and become accountable for their actions and stuff like that. And besides, we're going to legalize all the drugs in the whole country, and all the prisons are going to get empty, and them guys are going to be needing some jobs when they get out of prison anyhow. And you're going to have a whole bunch of empty prisons. So,
Charles Marcella.
The answer is yes. And a good example right now, and when I was mayor, we had a lot of people to see what child predators had moved into the neighborhood, and there was an app, actually. That's a website where you have to disclose that. So, I mean, that's not even a job where it's private. If you get convicted of that, that's out for the whole public to know that you molested a child or raped your child. To say that's part of the punishment. On these other issues, like Beryl said, I agree with him on his answer there. For the rest of your part, I'd be repeating what he had to say, but we need to disclose, because a child rapist, you don't want taking a job as a janitor in a school.
Dr. Gillum.
I feel like every individual should have to answer that question. If they went to prison, they should put it on the job application that they went. But there also should be more laws in place to protect them, so that companies will hire them.
Okay, great. For this question, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass on my debate question, but I'm going to let Ken or Raphael ask another debate question on this same line if they want to. If not, I'll go to the next category.
Let me just make an observation and get your reaction. It's kind of a play on what we just talked about. But I'll express my opinion, which is an employer should have the right to hire anybody they want to, or not hire anybody they want to, inclusively or exclusively, however you want to phrase it. If you just don't like the way somebody looks, or you just don't like them, period, you should not be forced to hire people. What is your response on that?
Thomas Clements goes first this time.
True, yes, I agree with you on that. Absolutely. I mean, I'm a small business owner, and so, you're not going to tell me who I have to hire and who I can't hire. And, the person has that qualifications. I don't care if it's a man or a woman, it doesn't matter gender or race or anything like that. But yeah, no.
Charles.
I'm going to agree with Tom. That's a very broad topic, but in general, I agree with Tom there. We have 5 people in my company, and if someone's chemistry doesn't fit in, what do? You're forced to let the company dissolve. And another company I was with, they had bad chemistry, and now it's out of business. But you have a lot of other places where that's not a requirement in larger companies.
Dr. Gillum.
I feel as though some companies do discriminate because of an individual color, gender, of how can I say it, their lack of understanding of who they are. But I feel as though these people should be protected as well, to be able to get a job, be able to support themselves, be able to support their families as well. And if there's no regulation saying, hey, you have to have so many of these people on payroll if you have a big company. So I say yes, there should be some regulation on that.
Okay, I think that's everybody for that question. So,
Nope.
okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just keep losing track. I really apologize. It's because it's the left part of the screen. I am so sorry about that.
As a small business owner, And, you know, we need to remember, this is a free enterprise capitalistic nation. A business owner should have the right to hire and fire anyone they choose based on their own beliefs. Now, the government can set up different things to where if we want to increase your tax credits, these are the things that got our society in a situation with tax credits. Because if the government wants to increase your tax credit to be able to open up your doors to a broader array of individuals, then in order to get this credit, you have to do these things. This has been in place, but it should be up to the business owner because it is a free business. It's just like saying, who can sleep in your house? You know, who do you want to invite into your home? You should have the individual right to determine who works and comes into your place of business. So, you know, Ken, I just think that you should be able to hire and fire whoever you want in business.
Okay. All right. The next set of icebreaker questions, we'll start with Dr. Gillum, and then we'll go around. And that first question is, Dr. Gillum, do you support funding the NASA Mars mission? If you're elected to Senate, will you appropriate money for the mission to explore Mars?
I feel like there's enough need to be done on Earth without us having to go to Mars to spend money.
Okay, great.
I think.
Mr. Brilliant, does the United States Navy currently have the ability to wage and win a war on the high sea? If we had to fight a war against another superpower, could we win that war?
We have the ability. The question is, will the leadership allow us? That's the the question. We have the ability to win. We just have to have the authority to do so.
Okay, great. Thomas Clements, if you're elected to Senate, will you support legislation that makes small, affordable satellites available to small, medium-sized businesses, or for that matter, to an individual if you could save up enough money to buy one?
Well, yeah, if you can save up enough money to buy one, why not? Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, Charles Marcella, do I have a right to fly an unmanned drone over your property with a camera and look down? And do you have a right to look up and shoot that drone down?
Absolutely. It's duck hunting.
Okay. All right. So let's give the first debate question now to Raphael.
I'm just curious before I give my next question. How many more rounds are we gonna do for this debate?
I would like to do, if everybody's up for it, maybe 2 more rounds, even 3. I'd even be up for taking a break and then coming back and doing it 2, 3 more.
Okay. I'm on the 2 side, so yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's getting late.
Okay.
Yeah,
Morning.
side's good for me too.
Okay.
Okay.
You're down to 2 rounds, man.
I'm trying to think of was this a question? Okay.
It was meant to be about national security. I was trying to go into the subject of national security and big national security, you know, the big Navy, the big Air Force, the satellite programs, that kind of stuff.
Okay, actually, you know what? You can go ahead and ask your question first. I forgot mine, so go ahead if you want to segue into that.
Well, I actually am losing track too of who is supposed to go first in debate questions. I think it would be Thomas Clements goes first this time. I think because
I think it would be my turn.
is it okay? All right, I'm sorry. Would you cut funds from the Pentagon for things like naval warfare and submarine warfare and funds from the Air Force for things like missile warfare and satellites? Or would you increase funding into those things so that we can deal with fighting a war against another superpower, China, Russia, examples?
I would increase funding into our military. That's one of the first things that I have underneath untangling the mess with our finances is to strengthen our military and secure our borders. So we're weaker now than we've been in a long time. Not to say that we don't have the ability to do a war, but we must fund to get us back to the strength and numbers that we have to be able to be successful. And then we also need to make sure that through leadership that we entice our president and the members of House and the Senate to make sure that we give the military the power and the authority that they need to win a war. Over the past few years, even in my lifetime, from, I wasn't around in Vietnam, but during the first Desert War, we had the opportunity to end some problems, and yet we were stopped. We were not given the authority to win that war, so we were put out there on a leash instead of putting out there with the vigor to win. So we need to make sure that the power is properly placed and that the ability is there, and that we have the funding available to keep us as strong as we need to be.
All right, Thomas Clements, would you increase funding for the big military, not guerrilla warfare, the big military, surface war, submarines, airplanes, missiles, satellites?
Being under, I guess, national security briefings and under advisement, yeah, I would approve of such a thing. And I know our military, as far as grounds, is probably, I think it's at the lowest it's ever been since World War II. And if there was ever a big military thing, though, that's definitely should be increasing on that. If we're behind, I think we're way beyond all the rest of China or Russia.
Charles, Marcella, would you?
No, I covered 9 western states out west with the military bases, and I was there when we reduced the military. It's a guns butter deal. You take the money for the military, it could be used for social programs, and right now, I don't think we really want to send guys to war and have wounded veterans in the VA bills. So I don't see the need to build up the military right now. I know we have a hell of a military. I just don't think. I think we need as much money right now for butter.
Okay, Dr. Gillum, would you put more money into the big military, the submarines, the airplanes, missile warfare, satellites, space program, or not?
I wouldn't put too much or nothing into the space program, but I would put into the military to help strengthen it, to make it a better organization, make it run like a well-oiled machine. But just go out and get to buying a lot of other stuff for the military, no, but to strengthen it only.
Okay, Ken, why don't we go to you, and then we'll let Raphael have the last question in this round.
Okay, it's my turn to ask a question.
Yes.
Okay, the big question in my mind is, what do you do about the not only the deficit but $20 trillion debt? How are you going to deal with that? The reason that comes to mind is we're talking about NASA and space travel. It seems to be that before we add additional expenses, we want to get out of debt. What do you guys think?
I believe it is Charles Marcella. Thomas first or Charles?
Thomas, okay, yeah.
Okay.
$20 trillion, yeah. I mean, what would be the best thing to do? Probably stop, borrowing $1 trillion. And what aggravates me the most is when you talk to any senator or congressman, they'll go, well, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. But yet they turn around and borrow $1 million. So I just see this as a serious issue as far as what's going on in Congress and why are we borrowing this $1 trillion and then we're paying $250 billion in interest. So we're killing ourselves and this can't continue on, and it's predicted for another decade that they're going to keep borrowing $1 trillion every single year. So I'm trying to bring public awareness, and I hope that we can stop doing that.
Oh, Charles.
We still have national security without it.
Okay. Charles, I think it's yours.
Yes. And to Ken, your point there, New Orleans used to have a the Apollo booster program was here to build the big first tank. You know, that was our big contribution in the space shuttle fuel tanks. And those programs are gone. And you're right, we are paying a price for having such a big debt because you know, space programs create technology that later creates other jobs and private sector jobs because the government funds the research on how to do specific things and then shares it. We've to get the debt under control right now. We've got I don't have an easy solution. I wish I could tell you I did. We could start by trying to reduce programs. Somebody's talking about a 1% deal every year. You bring it down another percent so you get our budget under control. And at the same time, you've got to bring the jobs back that have gone offshore back into the country so we have more income. 38% of the people aren't working right now, are not in the labor force, and you've got the other people carrying them, and that's causing the debt. We've got to get everybody working.
Dr. Gillum.
Yes, sir.
Ken, could you repeat? Ken,
Please.
please repeat.
Yep. Do what?
Please repeat the question.
The question was, what do you do about the $20 trillion debt?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
The federal debt is $20 trillion. How do you deal with that? I think he's falling asleep.
No. The federal, for some reason, you went very low. I didn't quite understand.
Okay. You want me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay. The government has a $20 trillion debt, or nearly so. How are you going to pay that down?
Well, personally, I look at it like this as a senator, individual senator. It will not be my responsibility to pay that down. But as a senator, I would try to come up with a solution to help get that payment. I would say that we need to make some budget cuts and put those budget cuts into toward the money that the spending for. I would say instead of paying $500 for a hammer, we pay the right price for a hammer and put the remainder toward the deficit.
Mr. Brilliant.
You know, as we talked about before, you know, my whole thing is reprioritizing our spending and putting our priorities in place. We have a big problem of waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. And it goes with this spend it or lose it mentality with budgets in all departments. If you've got a $500 million budget in this department and you get to the end of the year and you haven't spent it all, you go through the spending spree to spend the money because to make sure that that same money's in the budget for next year. We need to change our mentality and how we approach budgeting for it. And we need to be a smart negotiators. I mean, you know, that's one thing that Donald Trump said that makes a lot of sense. It's not that I don't agree with everything that he's saying, but he talks about negotiating properly to make sure that we get the best deal. You know, as an American citizen myself, what we do is in business is, you know, we look at the government as this an end-all, pay-all, where they have this huge pocket of money that they're going to do and spend prevailing wage. They're going to pay more money. And so a lot of companies take advantage of that. Now, we need, as senators and as congressmen, we need to make sure that we negotiate good deals and that we get a fair price. You know, the cheaper is not always better. So you want to make sure you've got good contracts, good deals in place. Now, the other thing that we also need to look at is the fact that some things that we're doing don't necessarily need to be done. We just need to prioritize where it is and make sure that we're spending our money. We need to be good stewards of the government's money is basically what it counts to. So we need to pay the debt down. We also need to make sure that we increasing the number of taxpayers. You know, we're talking about the space program. I worked with General Dynamics Space Systems divisions for a number of years on programs that the technology gave us MRIs, CAT scans, and those kind of things. So, you know, as the government puts forth the investment in making these space programs, we increase the revenue through the communities, increase the number of jobs, increase taxpayers, and it flows back into the system, bringing companies back on the U.S. soil, increasing their employment, brings money back in. So we need to focus on increasing the number of people paying taxes and not the number of taxes that individuals pay.
All right. Did everybody answer that question?
I did. I started it, Sean.
Okay. So Thomas, did you answer?
Yeah, I answered.
Okay.
Somebody answer.
All right, Raphael, do you want to ask another question, or do you guys want to cut it
I
off?
have my question. I have
All
a question. So for somebody my age, student debt is a concern to many of us, regardless of what state you come from. So my question would be, do you feel as though the government should mandate that colleges disclose the average amount of debt that a student holds at their university and the average amount of time it takes to pay off those loans and the average amount of salary that a person gets while graduating in the fields that that university offers?
I think that Dr. Gillum goes first because Charles said he started the last one. Is that correct?
I believe so, John.
I feel as though colleges are exploiting our children, taking advantage of them, should I say. They're charging astronomical prices for an education. Yes, there should be something done, that they should be regulated, they should be watched a lot closer. It costs us over close to $60,000 just to get a bachelor's, a good $49,000 to $60,000. I feel as though they're overpricing the young people that's trying to get an education. I feel as though there should be a better setup put in place for them to pay this money back instead of becoming like a pack of wild animals on the hunt.
Mr. Billiot.
You know, Raphael, it's a twofold question because there's two things involved in this. Now, as a student, you have to pay to go to school, and it needs to be affordable in order to be able to move on. And then on the other hand, you got an issue of, you talk about teacher salaries and all these other things that you want to pay the teachers high wages, professors, you want to get top-notch people in the universities. Well, that's not free. So it's a trade-off on you. Some of your private universities, you got some of these top-notch people, instructors in these classes. Of course, they may be getting $250,000, $300,000 a year, or whatever their salary may be. So whose responsibility is it? You know, that's the question. And so when you look at state-run universities, you got the same issue. You know, we talk about paying teachers more, paying professors more. That increases the cost of an education. Now, there's two sides of educational institution. You got your educational principals, and then you also have your facility funds. And so when we start talking about cuts in education, are we talking about cuts in the teaching staff where the students are affected? Are we talking about infrastructure where the buildings? You know, there's some universities that have multi-million-dollar entrances into their student unions. So it's a problem. Now, I think as far as the question of disclosing the amount, I mean, that's in your tuition fees. And however you borrow that money, whether the government subsidizes that or not, you know, it's pretty much public information already. So.
All right. Thomas.
As far as the direct question would be, I would say no, not to disclose it. And just because I'm a big privacy person, and you know, I wouldn't want my information disclosed to anybody or anything. And so, I mean, I guess that would answer the question. I mean, as far as that goes.
Charles, Marcella.
Yeah, Sean Raphael, I would say yes. And actually, when I was in school, it was disclosed. I was an engineering student at Tulane. When I graduated, I mean, your debt's going to vary depending on what type of scholarship you got and what type of deal. And my parents, fortunately for me, Dad said he would take care of my loans, and he paid them up over time. But I got a cousin who just graduated with $100,000 in debt from law school. When I graduated, they advertised for engineers, who was getting what jobs, how much a mechanical engineer earned, how much a chemical engineer earned. So that was public knowledge. The university wanted people to know what was going on, and there's nothing to force them to do. I think they're doing it so that people can make those decisions.
Okay, I'm thinking that maybe we should cut it off here.
Yeah.
Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so why don't we cut it off here, and then we'll contact each other again and see if you guys want to hold one more before the election. You don't have to make that decision now.
I'm already confirmed that. I mean, we could do another one like this. I mean, this is good.
Yeah. I would say that, and I would add in closing that St. Louis Cathedral in New Orleans is a great place to visit. And the colors purple, green, and gold came from the universities. LSU is purple and gold, and green is Tulane. And they didn't have enough fabric to decorate for Mardi Gras for the first Mardi Gras, so they borrowed the fabric from the universities.
Okay.
I
Doctor.
never did answer the question. Sycamore Point is a great place to go visit.
Hey,
And
Bill,
they made it a state park now
Okay.
and everything. So when you get a chance, you come over this way. You come out here and see Sycamore Point, right?
All right.
All right, done.
Dylan, make sure you call me, man.
Yes, sir.
All right. Barrel Billy and Dr. Gillum, do you want to say anything in closing?
I just want to say that, this Senate race is very important. It's, the people really make an educated decision and make sure that we got good leadership. Our priorities are upside down and backwards, and it's time to do something better. We need to be involved as citizens. We need to be involved as people. And, look, we definitely need to work together to solve the problems we have as a nation. And, we've got a good team of people here, and I think amongst us we got some great ideas. And whether or not, no matter who wins, I think our ideas should be implemented, and it's for the betterment of the entire nation. So,
Dr. Gillum.
thank you for the opportunity,
All right.
and we look forward to doing it again.
Dr. Gillum?
Well, thank you, guys. I do want to add thank you for putting this together, and this has been great.
All right, let's let Dr. Gillum have.
I stepped into the election for a reason. Whether I win this election or lose this election, according to man, I'm going to win regardless. I'm on a mission, and we are getting ready to make changes in Louisiana. I'm gearing up now. Every candidate is supposed to have equal time, equal space in these forums. And some of us did not get that. And I will not allow that to continue into the next election.
Are you talking about the television?
I beg your pardon?
Are you talking about the television forum or the way we run our debate?
No, they have nothing to do with you.
Okay.
Nothing to do with you. What we're going to do next is fight back. Gentlemen, crank your engines. Let's get busy.
Great. Raphael, do you have anything to say in closing?
Me?
Yeah.
No, not much. I mean, I enjoy these debates. I thank you for letting me, from a New York perspective, share some of my questions. And, I wish you all the best in the election.
Ken, do you have anything in closing?
Thanks, Raphael.
Thank
I
you.
have nothing else. Nope.
Ken, tell everybody, well, I guess that wouldn't make sense. I was going to say tell the viewers where they can view the show if they don't, but tell them where they can go back and find the video if they want to look at this later and edit it for their own YouTube channels and whatnot.
The domain name is thetalkshow.us.
Okay.
Very easy to remember, thetalkshow.us.
And they can also find it at Ken Daly at YouTube, Ken Daly's YouTube channel. That'll lead them there too, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. And I'm grateful for you putting up with the technical glitches. If we do this a third time, we're still going to have the same technical glitches when we first get set up. So.
That's all good. So good. Man, thanks
Hey
for
guys, I appreciate the help that you all have given us candidates. I really appreciate you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good
All
night.
right, man. All right. Y'all have a good time now.